And thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Warm welcome to you from wherever it is that you're watching or you're listening to us from. Welcome to the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism Mental Health Workshop this Wednesday, the 15th of May, 2024, which has as its primary objective, addressing the pressing issue of mental health amongst Nigerian journalists, with a particular focus on investigative journalists who often encounter significant challenges and dangers in the course of our work. By providing this platform for discussion and collaboration, we hope that this workshop will raise awareness about mental health issues and also destigmatize seeking help and establish support systems for journalists. Again, you're welcome to this workshop. We're kicking up, but let's give it a couple of minutes. Let's have like 3, 4 minutes to have other persons also join us as well. We know sometimes the internet plays certain tricks, and just having everyone settle in properly. Please, while we wait, a little bit of housekeeping. Let's keep our microphones muted. Let's also use the hashtag, for this particular event. That is a civic space guard and hashtag mental health, which will also help share some awareness right now, even as we proceed with this conversation with colleagues, an amazing panelist, as well as friends from the civic space who will be joining us right now. My name is Babatunde Okunola. Thank you for joining us once again. All right. Good morning once again. It is officially 11:05 Nigerian time, and I know we have a couple of persons also and professionals who are also joining us, from different parts of the world as well. Thank you so much for joining us on this particular session. Well, it's a workshop, if you like, mental health workshop. Thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to us, and well, it promises to be a delightful and packed conversation, in here. And so, ladies and gentlemen, once again, on behalf of the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, you are especially welcome to this mental health workshop organized by the center with support from the Netherlands Embassy. Today, we're gathered here not only to talk about the crucial role of investigative journalism in Nigeria, but then it is a whole lot of work. And if time would permit us and we gave everyone room to talk, I'm sure the stories would go on for days. But we're not just here to discuss the toll of investigative journalism, the toll it takes in Nigeria, but also to discuss a topic that is often overshadowed by the headlines, and that is the mental health of those who courageously pursue truth in the face of adversity. The storytellers, the truth tellers, we have different names for them, but courage definitely stands out. As we embark on this journey, we aim to peel back the layers of stigma and silence that surrounds mental health issues amongst journalists, particularly those on the very front line of investigative uh, reporting. And through the insight that will be shared in this workshop by our distinguished panelists, who I can't wait to introduce to some and make known to some others. It's like a family meeting here. We hope to not only deepen our understanding of the mental health challenges facing Nigerian journalists, but also chart a path towards a media landscape that nurtures both journalistic experience and individual well-being. A future where journalists can pursue truth without fear, knowing that their holistic safety is guaranteed and that their newsrooms have their backs, their colleagues have their backs, and that it's okay, to be a little tired and to have and face these challenges. My name again is Babatunde Okolala. I'm also a developmental journalist, investigative journalist by myself, and I think it's an honor to be able to moderate this session with you. Before we introduce our amazing panelists who, again, I can't wait to bring on board for this particular session, a little bit of housekeeping rules right here. Please, let's keep our microphones muted. Of course, do note that we do have a time for some specific questions that will be taken at the appropriate time as well. And also to our panelists, please, if you can, I understand the challenges of, the network issues and a whole lot. But if you can, it's okay if you can't. We hope to see your beautiful and amazing faces, especially for those who know the names that have since gone around the world. And well, again, let's welcome some of our panelists and everyone here. Again, let's start off with Haruna Mohammed, who's here and who will be sharing, reporting challenges, beats, and his experiences, basically. We also have right here with us, of course, Haruna Mohammed is co-publisher of the Wiki Times, and he's joining us here. It's an honor to have him join us this morning, this time of day, rather. Koforo Ola Bello Osage will also be discussing, experiences with us. Also, an accomplished journalist, and taking on different journalistic roles as well in the media space. Also, we have Juliana Francis, who's deputy editor of the Eagle Online, and uh, also we have with us Busola Ajibola. Busola Ajibola is the deputy director for Journalism Center for Journalism Innovation and Development. We also have with us also a human resource expert, Oluwakemi Shonobi, who will be speaking on why media houses should pay more attention. Boy, oh boy, that's a really, really important angle. And we have also with us an expert, Chinyere Ugo Onye Query, who will be speaking and giving us a fantastic take on the general mental wellness of a journalist experiences had. If you notice the reel up and the lineup that we've got a packed house, we've got interesting interesting persons right here, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say. We also take this time to welcome media professionals, civil society actors, and public and private sector players. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Students of communication, political science, and journalism, and all relevant stakeholders to this mental health workshop. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Again, let's keep this conversation going on with the hashtags. I gave you the hashtags earlier on, but then again, please let's keep it going on. We'll keep repeating that from time to time. That is hashtag civic space guard and hashtag mental health, even as this conversation progresses. Again, that is hashtag civic space guard and hashtag mental health. At this point in time, well, I've done the honors of, kicking off the conversation, but then again, well, it's more like me being the forerunner in this particular case. I'd like to also introduce to some and make known to some others, our opening. We'll be having the opening remarks and opening the floor. Before we open the floor, of course, of this particular conversation, of course, at this point, I call on Mrs. Motunrayo Alaka. That's the Director, CEO of the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, to give us the opening remarks. Madam.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Motunrayo is unavoidably absent at the moment, so I'll be taking her speech for the event. Thank you so much once again for joining us on this conversation. Of course, we've had a lot to do in the past couple of weeks, especially regarding the safety of journalists. Let's not forget, we recently celebrated the Day for Press Freedom, and of course, the incidents that have happened since then. But I'm not here to dwell on that. I'm here to just talk about why we are gathered here today. Of course, sometimes in 2023, of course, FIJ's Daniel Ojukwu, who has been released, actually published a report about the senior special assistant to the president on SDGs, Adejoke Adefulire, paying a restaurant 147.1 million naira to build classrooms and the skill acquisition center right here in Lagos. And we all know where all of that has led to now. Also, Foundation for Investigative Journalism's investigation into Arrows of God orphanage, alleged trading of babies for money to lead, which actually led to the closure of the orphanage in both Lagos and Anambra State. Also, earlier this year, the Nigerian government suspended the evaluation and accreditation of degree certificates from Benin Republic and Togo following a report published in the Daily Nigerian, which exposed certificate racketeering, what I've also liked to refer to as certificate merchandising, which of course we also how that happened, how individuals left the country and were going to neighboring African countries to get certificates of the higher institutions there in what I like to call record time. Of course, that's part of the impact of the center. I'm talking about Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism right now. So, we thought it fits that why should we really have these workshops? It's a lot of issues that journalists have to deal with, from deadlines. One of my former bosses would say headlines and deadlines. So from the deadlines and the stresses that are associated with it, from physical threats and harassment, which happens both online and offline. Also, exposure to a lot of traumatic events. Editors, reporters, they are at the forefront. They are the front burner of this issue. So the news that you hear on your TV or on your radio, they are the ones that, more like first responders, they are the ones that hear this news first before you hear them. And of course, that's a lot of trauma, if you ask me. So the exposure to this traumatic event. Sometimes they are even live at the scene of this incident. So also, we can't shy away from the fact that journalists in Nigeria face the issue of poor remuneration, which is also another threat, if you ask me. And we've been hearing of lawsuits here and there. We've been hearing of arrests here and there. I talked about Daniel Ojukwu earlier, and that is the reason we have decided to put this together. And the temptation to say nothing is wrong, I'm fine. I think that's like the default answer to how are you in this part of the world. I mean, people are afraid to say I'm not fine. When you say is anything wrong, they will say no. Nothing is wrong. I'm fine. I can take care of myself. I'm just doing my job. I don't need help. You won't understand. It is strong, this and that. So these are the default answers to get to questions from those who even care in the first place. And a lot of people don't really want to talk about these issues, and for various reasons. When you say, oh, it looks like this thing is affecting you, people will say, no, it's not affecting me, because people really don't want to speak, probably because of culture, probably because of stigma, or the fear of being mislabeled or misunderstood. I mean, some are afraid that when they talk, people won't be their friends again. Some are just don't want to say the truth. So these are the reasons why many people don't want to talk about. But we are here this morning to tell people that their mental well-being is very, very important, not just to us at Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, but to a thriving civic space in Nigeria. And that is why we have put together this workshop. The objective is to ensure that we have mentally fit journalists, and I think this helps them to process difficult stories objectively and report them accurately. Also, to prevent burnout. I mean, when we manage stress very well and avoid burnout, journalists can actually stay very, very motivated and be productive in their careers. Also, I think the overall well-being of journalists is one of our core here, right there at right here at the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. And good mental health actually allows journalists to function better in all aspects of their lives, leading to greater happiness and fulfillment. And I think this is very, very important. So what are we offering in by doing this? I think it is really, really important we highlight that. The stories journalists, especially investigative journalists, reports really affect their mental health. We'll be deceiving ourselves if we say this is not the situation. So we have noticed that not enough attention has been paid to this, and the WSCIJ is actually highlighting the need to provide a psychosocial support. With support from the Netherlands Embassy, WSCIJ we actually provide psychosocial support to journalists. And this workshop serves as a soft launch for that activity, which will be rolling out just immediately after this workshop. Also, to access this service, we'll put out a call for application immediately after this workshop ends to request that you fill out a form, and we will match selected applicants with an organization certified in mental well-being matters, and you know what that means. And this is at no cost to all the journalists that will be involved. Like I said earlier, we are doing this in collaboration with our partners at the Netherlands Embassy. So please know that for the journalists that will be applying for this, I would like to tell you that your confidentiality would be really taken care of. I mean, we won't take all of your data lightly. So it is important. Also, at this point, I like to appreciate our partners on this project, the CJID, who we are collaborating on this together. And I can see my sister Busola Ajibola on the call. She's part of our panelists today. She will be doing justice to a lot of these issues. So before I go, I have to just conclude with this quote, which I really want to break it down in the everyday language, but let me just go first. Yeah, it is from Eleanor Brown. It says, rest and self-care are so important. When you take time to replenish your spirit, it allows you to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. So let me just put this in one word, and it is often thrown around these days. People will say, I beg rest. So I think that's just what I'd like to wrap up with this morning. Thank you so much for joining this conversation. And I wish everyone fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much. Good morning to you.
Well, good morning once again, Olaoluwa. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I see a clap, like a round of applause, and we can make use of our emojis as well. You know, the emojis, the thumbs up, you know, to support the speakers even as they speak sometimes. All right. So again, thank you so much, Olaoluwa, for standing in for the director and CEO of the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism to give that brilliant opening remark. I picked up on the quote Olaoluwa gave, rest and self-care. When you take care of yourself and you replenish yourself and you know those words, in practice, that's a totally different ball game. But we're here to discuss all of that. Is it possible to be at the front line at all times and also still maintain a certain level of self-awareness and self-care? Thank you once again. In case you're just joining us, well, we welcome you once again to this mental health workshop hosted by the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism and supported by the Netherlands Embassy to address the present issue of mental health amongst Nigerian journalists, particularly investigative journalists who face significant challenges and dangers in the course of doing the work. As we continue with this conversation, of course, it is also important to let us know and remember that addressing mental health in journalism is not just an obligation, but it is a necessity for the sustainability of the profession and the well-being of those who dedicate their lives to it. At this point in time, without further ado, we're cutting straight to the issue and I'll be introducing to some, making known to some others. Aruna Mohammed. Aruna Mohammed is co-publisher Wiki Times, who will be speaking to us and sharing, you know, the toll reporting challenging beat takes on journalists and how newsrooms are looking out for a journalist. Of course, if you look Aruna up, you know that is an acclaimed journalist whose instance and case got reported widely by the Committee to Protect Journalists. I'm sure I will be hearing some of the stories this morning. Haruna, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am very grateful to the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism for inviting me to discuss this subject that is often, overlooked despite its critical importance. Thank you so much for WSCIJ for all that you guys are doing for the journalism community. So before I delve into, mentioning or talking about the proactive measures journalists can take, to prioritize journalists' mental health and ensure a resilient media landscape, because it is my conviction that many people. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you, but it sounded like you broke up for just a minute there, some seconds there, but we can hear you. Please go on.
Okay. It's like, yeah, thank you. So like I was saying, it is my conviction that many people, including journalists themselves, are yet to fully understand how mental health issues affect them. So let's journalists, and I know many a times what readily comes to mind is the emotional strain, right, that comes with it, the increased stress, right, and sometimes the financial implications, particularly when one has to relocate, for safety reasons. Talk about the burnout, the emotional detachment, if you like. These effects are are real, and many a times they are, in the eyes of many journal experiences or personal experiences. We must also consider sometimes the broader impact, or what I love to call the snowball effect, which affects not only the individual journalists, but also their loved ones or those around them. And I can share a few example, personal example, as someone who has been in the field and someone who has come into contact with these toxic experiences. So, for instance, when I was arrested, detained and later reprimanded in prison study when we were covering the presidential election. Of course, the experience was naturally traumatic and it has a very far-reaching effect on my mental health, right? So outside that ecosystem, as a journalist, there are a whole lot of people, around you. Someone who is not a journalist, someone who has not done that interview, someone who has not, filmed those protesting women, someone who was not arrested, who was not detained or reprimanded in prison for days. They are also affected in many ways. And this is because they are your loved ones, they are your colleagues, they are your friends, and they are your subordinate in the office. So when I was released from detention, I had about terrible experiences, terrible stories that unfolded while I was held in detention. And sometimes you could see visible stress uh, on the face of your loved ones. For example, my mom, fell ill. She took ill for days, and it took her more than 2 weeks to recover. I can tell you authoritatively, she is still very traumatized by that experience. And this is an innocent woman who has committed no crime. She is completely innocent. But the snowballing effect I mentioned earlier is affecting her because her son is a journalist who has offended powerful figures. I was also told about my wife's experiences, even though she shied away from mentioning them to me personally. But I learned that she also cried for days while I was in detention, which is also as a result of the snowballing effect. So, and not only that, your staff members are also worried. Sometimes the younger ones approach you to tell you how they felt while you were held in captive. And sometimes some of them are bold enough to even question why they should remain, in this job, witnessing your horrible experiences. So after being released, at that time, I had to also confront these issues, not only at the personal level, but also meeting all these loved ones that are affected by my own experiences to say, I'm sorry this thing happened to you. And of course, you have to continue to apologize. You have to continue to encourage them. You have to continue to convince and motivate them that despite all of the things that have happened, you are fighting for a just cause. So for me, I think the conversation is not only about our mental health issues at a personal level. It's also about those around us that are also affected by our experiences. And for me, managing all of this is another significant challenge for many of us. And unfortunately, that is our sad reality. That is our life. And sometimes it of course culminates into a bigger health issues for many of us.
Whoa, whoa. Thank you so much, Haruna Mohammed, for that take. And thank you for all that you do from colleague to colleague. It's been a fascinating story to really listen to and to take a look at. And that's what this conversation is all about. And again, the selflessness of an investigative journalist. Okay. And somehow Haruna shifted the focus from himself, to even concerns and the trauma of seeing family members, having to go through certain instances because of what we do. And oftentimes that's the story of every journalist out there. Thank you so much. In case you're joining us, this workshop focuses on the mental health of investigative journalists generally, and we're having quite the conversation. Thank you so much. Again, please, let's keep our microphones muted while we're not speaking. Thank you so much once again. Well, let's move this conversation forward by bringing on board right now for an opening remark as well, Koforola Bello or Sagi, who's going to be sharing her experience as well. Well, she's a journalist and also commissioning editor at the Conversation Africa and well-decorated journalist as well. Koforola, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours. Can you share some of your experiences as well in this regard?
Good day, everyone. Please, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you for having me. My camera is off to optimize network.
We understand.
Thank you so much. I think what I would like to start with is that the lack of awareness about the mental health issues that we have. We don't see them as mental health. We don't even know that there's something wrong. I think I have to go back deep, maybe way back to really pinpoint whether I ever thought anything was related to mental health. But I think the first time I connected my experience with mental health challenge was during COVID. You know, the anxiety of working, doing stories, and the lockdown, and still having to find your way to work, you know, and take care of your family. It took a toll on me. I think I broke down before my family and I started crying that you have to be careful. Maybe I just had this, I hope we're not all going to die kind of thing because of information overload. So, but at that point, I did not connect. I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I think I reduced the amount of news I was watching to cope. But it was later I realized that the toll, everything, you know, having to work, having to do the stories, having to keep physical distance, not knowing whether you are going back to infect your family and your children, all that. It was later I realized that I was mentally stressed. And since then, I have learned a lot. It took me, and this is a recent journey because it took me almost 3 or 4 years to connect that when that stress has an impact on your physical health. And I lived years on this job, not sleeping until 12. It was a way of life. 12, 1, 2 a.m., get home late. Then I will still cook, you know, and, you know, or bake late into the night and sleep late. And I didn't know that all those things were the stress, lack of sleep, was affecting my mental health, you know, and diet was another factor affecting my mental health. All these things are connected, but we don't know until I went to the hospital to investigate something else. And the doctor started telling me something else, like, your blood pressure is high. And I'm like, no, it's not high, that maybe I'm just stressed. And they checked again and said, you have to do something about it. And it took me another 1 year to understand what I had to do, to start checking. I started linking the lack of sleep to my crankiness in the morning. My husband used to complain that I was cranky in the morning. I would shout at everybody. I'm trying to prepare the kids for school by 4:30, 5, and I did not sleep. I slept maybe 2-3 hours. You know, I worked late, then still did something, slept, then woke up very early in the morning, and I have to prepare kids for school for 7 a.m. And I'm shouting, I'm angry, I'm moody. I did not connect mood, all these mood swings with me. I did not connect anything until I started taking things slowly that, okay, this is what is happening to you. So what I want to enjoin everyone is that everybody has to take a personal journey. Start taking stock of the things you do. If you are not sleeping well, if you are stressed, I can say if you're a journalist doing this our work, you are stressed. If you are really stressed, start working on it. And how do you work on cutting down stress? Check what are the stressors. The stressors can also mean meeting deadlines. Meeting deadlines causes a lot of stress for me. Anxiety, trying before your editor calls you to order, or all those other deadlines, or it might even be all these your international programs, and you have a deadline to meet. I have done nights without sleeping because I wanted to meet deadlines. And I did not know it was harming my body until some things on my body I didn't even know were changing. So some things, it was my husband showing, why are you developing rashes? And I'm like, what's the meaning of this? And I started reading about it and found out that. So then I'll see some things, spots here, spots there. I didn't know that those were pointing to my blood sugar being high. I didn't know that food cravings meant that I was taking too much sugar. And I didn't know that when you have too much of that in your system, it also affects your mental health. So I have started taking a lot of steps. Stress, cutting down stress. You need a support base. You need your support from your family and friends. You need to have times that you distress. Maybe programs you go for, event that outside the job, and not the social media, because that adds to your stress. If you're on your phone constantly, it also stresses you. Then lack of sleep is something I am still training myself. Telling myself I should go to bed by 10 p.m. Fortunately, because I changed jobs for the normal newsroom job, I don't have to get home late. But I have to train myself to sleep by 10. It's so hard to go to bed by 10 because I've not been used to it for a very long time. I found out that all the lack of sleep is affecting me. Then another thing is diet. Diet, now I don't eat more than the portions I give my children, because when I eat too much, I add weight. You add weight, your blood sugar goes up, your blood sugar goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and it is just a vicious cycle that you have to address. We as journalists, when you are younger, but as you start getting older, all those things start causing health complications. And we know. Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you. You're breaking up. Yes, we can hear you, Koforola. You're breaking up, but
okay.
you'll have to, but it's a great, remarkable story.
Sorry, let me wrap up now.
Please, thank you.
Sorry. Yes. As we know, I want to say that many of us know that many journalists have died. We have contributed money for veteran journalists when they took ill. And it was because of these small things that were not addressed when they were younger, or small things that you let go of, you did not check. So please, I advise everyone, check your blood pressure, check your diet. These are changes I've made. I have lost a lot of weight and I feel better. My mood is better. And I'm now learning that I must sleep. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Koforola, for that. That was quite a speech. And I could tell about how passionate you are about this issue, because you have been there, you've done that, and you've seen that. And so you can always talk about that. Thank you so much for that. Again, It's quite the conversation we're having right now. And one of the points Gofuro made was start taking stock. Start taking stock. At this point in time, we'll be moving on the conversation as well to our next panelist, Juliana Francis, who's also the deputy editor for the Eagle Online platform, who will be talking to us on this particular session about the tall reporting challenge and beats takes a journalist and how newsrooms are looking out for journalists. If there's one person who can talk about reporting challenging beats, I'm very, very sure a lot of you who know her will agree it's Juliana Francis. Any crime reporter, crime beat reporter is definitely going to have their hands full. And so let's have you, Juliana. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Babatunde. So I'm supposed to talk about if media organization, they place premium on the mental health for their journalists. So right from the go set is no. No, they do not. I've worked in about 4 media organizations. Now I'm freelancing and I've never ever experienced that. Now, let's first understand that working as an investigative journalist or a reporter in Nigeria is even not easy at all. So that is why this conversation is very important. Journalists who cover traumatic beats need to be debriefed, at least by a specialist. So we cannot, we do not receive this. I don't know if the new media are into it, because the new media, they're actually trying very well in so many things, but I don't know if they are doing it because it's actually very expensive. But I know in print, where I'm more conversant with, they don't have it. So we are battling with challenges, not just challenges of state actors, but we are also battling with challenges of non-state actors. Pressure, somebody, Haruna talked about pressure, and that is the truth. In the newsroom, especially the traditional newsroom, you are expected to cover too many beats, just one person. The pressure is there. And each of these beats, you are expected to turn out good stories. And for those of us who cover crime beats and maybe other general beats, we come in contact with human suffering, you know, and we see horrors almost every day. Things that have to do with violence, covering conflicts, accident, terrorism, mass suicide, beheading. In fact, now I'm so involved in issues that have to do with gender-based violence, rape, defilement. It affects a journalist's mental health, creating negativity there. Challenges even we encounter. We just don't talk about the beats that you cover. What about the challenges you as a journalist or as an investigative reporter you encounter? The threats, the harassment, the attacks that are always there. For instance, to mark the World Freedom, there was interviewing some journalists. I interviewed Mojid Alabi. He now works with Premium Times. There was a time he was with us in the New Telegraph. He did a story. At the end of the day, he was attacked. In fact, the hand, he went to hospital, he did everything himself. His hand was in a sling for weeks. Thugs went to his mother's house, threatened the mother and told the mother that they were going to kill him. And he was the one that footed this beef himself. When he just came to office, people were just saying, oh, you need to be careful, you need to be careful. Nothing was done about his mental health. The office didn't do anything about it. Another of our reporters, Gubanke, was shot when he went to cover PDP rally. Nothing was done about it. When he came back from hospital, we were just saying, thank God that you were not killed. You know, I talked to Samson Folari while I was doing a report, and he told me that the time he will never forget in his life was when he went to do a story that has to do with hospital that misdiagnosed a student. And Samson was threatened and detained by the hospital where they have private detention facility. He was placed there. He said he was so traumatized that up to date, as he was speaking to me last week, that he has not gotten over it. So the challenges, what about the challenges on women? What about the challenges of women? I'm a woman, you know. When I was a rookie, I went to cover a story at a police station, Bariga police station. It has to do with a murder story, you know. So the DPO invited me in, and before I knew it, the man just locked the door and just jumped on me. I was a rookie. I've spent over 15 years on this beat. That fear of that moment when he jumped on me, I can't, even up till now, I just can't deal with it. Of course, I had experienced rape before that incident. I had experienced rape, but that notwithstanding, no woman can get used to that, can get used to somebody locking door, trying to force himself on you, having a kind of strength that is not woman strength anymore. You know, as a woman, you are covering the beat as an investigative reporter. You need informants. Informants are asking for sex. Now, people might think it's nothing, but it's something. It affects the mental health too. Policemen, uniform men that are demanding for sex, they are touching your buttocks, flapping your bra, you know, just for you to get story. And even your office, nobody you tell will want to listen to that. They will just say, excuses do not fill the pages of the newspaper. When I was almost raped at that police station, I got to office, I told them, and they told me that, it's normal with women covering the beat. Because at a point, I told them that I wanted to be removed from the crime beat, and they told me that even if I went to other beats, it was still going to be the same story, you know. But what that did for me was that it kind of restrained my movements. Usually, I would go to police stations to get stories, go to DPOs, go to area commanders, but as part, I just minimize my movement. I don't go out to visit or to go and say I'm hunting for story from one place or the other, except I have built a kind of trust relationship with you. So all those kind of things can lead to a trauma-exposed journalist. And not every one of us can work with a kind of certain level of emotional detachment. Even when we talk about emotional detachment, are we really detached? When we say we are okay, are we really okay? We are not. I knew my job was getting to me when I started crying while I was interviewing a father that lost his only son. You know, the man even had to marry like 3 wives because he was looking for a baby boy. And all the wives had girls, then finally one had the boy. All the wives and the girls were worshiping the boy. They sent the boy to one university. The school sent him an assignment, and the boy went for a beach with friends, and that was where he died. When the man was weeping, I just started crying with him. I knew something was wrong with me when I started seeing videos. I've been covering this beat, nothing was wrong with me, but suddenly I started seeing videos that were making me cry. Videos of herdsmen using machetes to cut out babies out of pregnant women. I broke down whenever I see such videos. And they were not affecting me before, but suddenly it's affecting me now. Videos of dead bodies of children at international war fronts, you know. Children as young as 5 years, 3 years, working in quarries, a story I did, you know, it affected me, you know, and then I knew something was definitely wrong when I started I couldn't sleep, I was having insomnia, you know,
Right.
videos of Boko Haram beheading farmers. I tried to forget. I wanted to forget, but I couldn't because even I remember stories like, if I close my eyes to sleep, things that have passed, you know, stories that I've covered for long, they will just come to my mind. Stories of, I was interviewing a suspect, and the suspect just said, oh, I know I'm going to die anyway. So what the heck? He just carried the dagger in front of me and slashed his stomach, and intestines were just gushing out, you know. I was interviewing a suspect, and the police said he was lying, and they just smashed his head in my presence. I can't forget. I remember interviewing a story. I went to Panti. They couldn't arrest the robber. They got the girlfriend, and for her to confess, they inserted a beer bottle into her private parts. You know, it kind of gets to you. It gets so editors are affected too. Editors are affected. I've been an editor. So you think, so sometimes we focus so much on the people on the beat, people on the field. But I've been an editor. And when your reporters bring stories,
Thank
you are
you.
editing, the words are creating pictures. So you know that even editors today need psychosocial treatment or evaluation.
Thank you, Juliana. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Juliana. I feel like every one of our panelists has got, stories to say. And for the very first time, some of us might be hearing these angles there. Oh, journalists, are they strong? Oh, they're the strong ones. We can throw everything at them. They are the gatekeepers who, sometimes determine what information we get, but counting the costs on them, on they themselves and their loved ones. Again, thank you so much for that interesting take and retrospection, Juliana. Thank you so much for that particular sober one. At this point in time, well, again, we've had several takes, several experiences that have been shared at this particular point in time. It's a good time to bring in Busola Ajibola, who will be speaking on the cases of documented attacks on journalists and long-term mental health implications of such. I want to really get this, the documentation. How often do we have these cases, documented? Do we even come out to talk about it, or do we just brush it out off as being the strong ones? Busola, thank you so much for your take. Busola is Deputy Director, Journalism Center for Journalism Innovation. Hello.
Hello. Yeah. So thank you, Babatunde.
Hello, Busola.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Is Busola there? I don't know if you
Yes.
can hear me.
Yes, I
I can
can.
hear her.
Yes, welcome.
We
The
can
floor
hear her.
Oh, okay. So good afternoon, Babatunde.
is yours.
I want to say thank you to other panelists that have spoken before me. In fact, thank you so much, Juliana, for being so courageous and for sharing those details. I just want to start by saying that these are stories that we don't hear often, right? So the stories we hear are, accountability reporting, fantastic accountability journalism that, journalists have reported. We think that makes them celebrities. We never ever see what happens to them behind the scenes. So, and this is at the core of what we do at the CJID. So we've been trying over the years to document incidents of attacks, the pattern of those attacks, those who are responsible mostly for this nature of attacks. And I can tell you that between 1985 and 2024, we have tracked 1,119 attacks. So I'm speaking to different kind of attacks ranging from physical harassment, unlawful detainment. I'm talking about kidnaps in some cases, instances where journalists are burdened with slaps. So slap is called strategic litigations against public so there are various instances of those. And from the trend of the data that we have collated, the ultimate perpetrator of attacks against journalists are state actors. I like that, we're now bringing in the nuances of where even some experience that we do not usually qualify as attacks against the press are being spoken about now. For example, so if you're experiencing immense pressure to meet deadlines, immense pressure to kill a story, immense pressure to, either flee your state or flee your country for safety, sometimes we don't even get to see those kind of attacks, to document. I particularly like the angle that Juliana came in from, because in recent times we've started thinking of, okay, so we document physical attacks, we document detainment, unlawful detainment, but when we talk about physical harassment, for example, if a journalist goes to a protest ground and is being arrested by the police, when it comes to physical harassment of a male journalist and physical harassment of a female journalist, we're no longer talking about the same thing. So we are talking about different layers of harassment, for instance. So in a case of a male journalist, you probably just bundle the male journalist, damage their equipment, maybe throw them in a bus, take them to a prison, which in itself is a very serious human rights violation. But when you then come to a female journalist, harassment can actually dovetail into sexual harassment, body groping, and all of that. But when these instances are instances of attacks against female journalists are reported, because the female journalists cannot even summon the courage to speak about being sexually harassed, right? So these are some of the challenges that we are observing. Juliana talks about informant. So you want the credibility of every reporting depends very largely on the sources that you're speaking with. So we are beginning to see instances where a source is demanding for sex in exchange for information. And well, because in this job as a journalist, you are as good as your last story, some people would say. So journalists sometimes may want to just go all the way. So when you have a female journalist who finds herself in that kind of dilemma, I don't know if we're even engaging female journalists enough, to reassure them, to reaffirm them that if they ever find themselves in this kind of situation, they can take a step back, they can speak to the organizations and be sure that they will be protected. We can always assign someone else to tell that story without it appearing as if, oh, we feel like you are not efficient enough. Where they're like, I have to do the story because if I don't, I may appear as if I am not good enough. So these are real dilemmas that I think journalists are speaking about. I also like the fact that Juliana now said, she had to interview some journalists to just capture their stories or their experience around mental health issues. I was talking at another forum a few weeks ago where I'm like, I don't usually get to see instances where a particular journalist experienced an harassment. And then we do an extensive sit-down feature reporting or detailed feature with that journalist. We should have something like that, because if journalists can report about human rights violations against all other people, they have to also begin to report human rights violations that happens within and amongst themselves. I think we're at that point. So this year alone, I just want to run through some of the attacks that we have documented at the CGID. We have documented, I think, 14 attacks. Just yesterday now, to now make it 15, we just learned that another journalist in I think Katsina was arrested by ISBA police, detained. His equipment were seized, his phone, and all of that. And then you now look at, Balasin, are you speaking?
No, I was just saying. Well, I was just about to tell you to. We have like maybe 1-2 minutes. Please go on. It's a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to spotlight some of the attacks that we have tracked this year.
Please go
on. This year, which now is about 15, and we have the one where the Kwara State Polytechnic rector on the ordered the police to detain 2 journalists. So that's police. We have instances where the police harassed Kasarachi of the Whistler. We had journalists who were harassed by the soldier. We had the threatening of the FIJ publisher by the police under Cybercrime Act. We have the harassment of Mr. Larry Arogundade, who was stopped at the airport by the DSS. We had Aruna, who is on this panel, who has been on consistent harassment, who has had to face consistent harassment from the governor of Bauchi State, using the instrument of his office with the police. We have Daniel Ojukwu, we have another reporter from Wiki Times who was threatened by a lawmaker and his aide for unraveling, diversion of food. So I just want to encourage journalists. I mean, salute your courage, but it's time to stand together now in solidarity with one another. This is the time to begin to tell our own stories and make this issue prominent, reflecting how they not only impact us as individuals, how they impact the lives of the people that we love. I don't know if we conduct a research on the impact of harassment on the children of journalists, it would be amazing what we would come out with. So I think this is a very serious issue, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation.
Oh, Busola Ajibola, thank you so much. She's Deputy Director, Journalism Center for Journalism Innovation and Development. Thank you so much for that take. And the data, because sometimes that's why we need the data. A lot of persons wonder about, no matter how small it is, because the data you've reeled out, a lot of persons would argue, are simply a microcosm of the real picture that is to be had in this particular conversation. At this point in time, of course, we're broadening the conversation, but let's get the HR perspective to this. I'll be bringing in a human resource expert, Ms. Oluwakemi Shonobe, who will be speaking on why media houses should pay attention to the mental health of the members of staff, especially those reporting beats deemed high risk. Well, she's also Director, People, Culture, Experience and Operations at TVC Communications. The floor is yours, madam.
Thank you, Babatunde. It is indeed an honor to be part of this conversation. I've been listening to Juliana, I think Haruna has spoken, Kupo has also spoken, and Busola has given us some insight with data. Like one of them rightfully said, many people do not know the gravity or the extent of mental health conversations and its impact on people and the organization as a whole. And it's very commendable to this institute that we're having these conversations, because everyone is affected, whether in the media space, everyone is affected, but more here in line with the conversation. So I think I'll start from the impact on individuals and organizations before I even go into my knowledge of what happens in our newsrooms. Even though I'm a HR practitioner, this is the support we give to media, and then what we at TVC do. And I think when Juliana was talking, I was taking notes where she was saying many organizations don't even provide any form of support. I am so impressed that we do that at TVC. So let me start off. Of course, the first issue is stigma, culturally, and it's not normal to start talking about things that you are dealing with, whether she's breaking. Somebody says I'm breaking. I'm sorry, but can everybody hear me? Babatunde, please confirm.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
It's
I
fine.
thought it was important to show my face. I know that most people haven't shown their faces since, but so that just makes it a bit more relatable. So there is stigma which we need to first talk about. It's not everybody it's not easy for people to talk about their feelings, their emotions, or their health, as it were. And culturally, it's not something, back in the day when you start saying you have a breakdown, the first thing that comes to people's mind is that people that are dealing with mental health issues, you must have torn your clothes, you're walking on the road, and people are locking you up in your houses because you cannot express yourself. So education is very important, and I'll come to that. Of course, for individuals, there's a decline in your mental health, and this is evident when you're dealing with such intense stories that, like most of the people that have spoken before me have referenced. It's not easy for any human being to be seeing these things, reading these things, hearing these things, and not have a reaction to it. Of course, there are physical health complications, and I think Kufu mentioned that. I can speak even as a HR practitioner. You know, we deal with all sorts of things. People are telling you, staff are dealing with issues in the home front. They come to work, maybe somebody collapses, you're having a bad day, you're dealing with some investigation on your own. I cannot imagine as a journalist in the forefront when you're investigating. So there's a correlation, you know, because the mind and body are connected. You know, a lot of times people they think that the mind is separate. It's like a wristwatch, you know, when the battery of your wristwatch goes, everything else is affected. The hands, the second hand, the main hand, it just stops working. And that in itself is an impact on the individuals. You have social isolation, because what happens when you start dealing with these things is that you withdraw from people. You don't want to talk, you don't want to share. You start dealing with a lot of, I just want to stay in my space. And of course, there's an impact on work performance. So if these things are the impact or the effects, you know, of mental health as individuals, now on organization, you're talking about decreased productivity. You cannot perform if you are not mentally, emotionally capable. You can't deliver. And that's why we also talk about absenteeism rate. It actually increases because you're either having issues at the hospital, you have appointments, you can't even come out from your home because you're just dealing with a lot at the same point. Of course, for organizations, it increases healthcare. So organizations that don't have that, or haven't instituted a robust HMO, what happens is that people are paying from pocket, they can come to work, and if you don't have HMO, if you have a system where you're saying people should retire their receipt, what it means is because your staff are dealing with all sorts of things. And then I think the big one is negative organizational culture. When you do not take care of your people, or you do not invest in your people, what happens in terms of their healthcare, their well-being, wellness, it has a negative organizational culture. So imagine if I'm trying to recruit people, journalists, and they research and they check that people are not taken care of in that company, then what happens automatically is that you already have a culture that is not exciting. And of course, the last one will be legal and reputational risks for your organization. So these are the impacts, I'll say, from organization. Now, from, you know, we have stories of people being owed salaries. That doesn't happen here. I can beat my chest and say that, and I know there are people from TVC on this call. So imagine that you're not paying people due, you know, their dues when they go out on the field and do their jobs. I don't know, Babatunde, are you trying to stop me? Or is there a comment? Or I should continue? Can you hear me?
No, there was for a minute. Yes, we can hear you now. For a second there, it was a bit
okay, I was frozen.
Yes.
I apologize. I was saying that there are things, you know, organizations also do where or even journalists, where that leads to this type of breakdowns beyond even the stories that you go to, because the stories, getting the stories, interacting with people to tell their stories in the course of work, it breaks down parts of you. And I think Kofu mentioned that. But you have instances where you're being owed salaries, you're being owed payment, and that in itself affects your being able to plan, being able to take care of your family. Imagine coming to work for weeks and months, and then your company or your whether you're consulting or you're a full-time employee, you're not being paid your wages. The newsroom itself is a madhouse. We always joke about that. You know, you see people shouting and calling, you know, from bulletin editors to producers to the reporters that come from the field, even the camera people. It is a madhouse. So it's always amusing to me when you see them shouting on themselves when they want to get the bulletin out or the story out, and then after everybody just goes to reset mode. There's this joy and excitement. Imagine it's fluctuating. So there's a lot. We see instances where journalists also are not preparing for retirement, because that in itself also starts affecting you. There's no plan for retirement. So before you cut me off, I think it's important to now say things that we at TVC Communications have done or keep doing. We're not perfect, but I think it's important that, and that may be a leaf that many people will borrow from. We do have wellness coaches, people who we call them life coaches, counselors, who help our staff. You book a session with them to talk about things you're dealing with. It's completely confidential, has no influence or impact from even the HR department. We have crèche facilities for parents, both male and female. And the reason that has been instituted is because I know somebody mentioned you're raising children in the beat of you building a career. It's important to also know that you have support from the company. You need required breaks. So companies, organizations need to ensure that they institute a system where beyond annual leave and all the other leaves, paternity and maternity, which is very important, when people need help and support and they liaise with their managers, these are things that we have instituted. And I think the most important one, beyond all the things I've listed, is our very focus on education and sensitization.
Wow. Thank you.
Every month have bi-weekly emails, commentaries, and tips on things people need to do to ensure that they take care of their health. And then lastly, we do conduct routine health checks for our staff, medical checks, routine ones. And these are things organizations can do. Yes, it comes at an expense, but it's an investment in your resources, which is why I started from the first step. Thank you very much, Babatunde, because I see you're trying to cut me off. I see.
No. Thank you. Thank you for that. Like I said again, these are conversations that we should be having in person. These are conversations that we should be having for hours because, again, the amount of time we've got is never enough. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you for speaking up for HR. At least we're getting it right in some aspects in this part of the world. Thank you so much for that. Again, to our esteemed listeners and wherever it is you're watching us from, please do take time out to fill our attendance form. If you check the comment section, there's an attendance form there. You can just simply click on the link, nothing burdensome, and please help us out by filling that. And it's for record purposes, for the data. Please, you can do that even while this conversation unfolds in here. We've had quite the conversation in here, and it's brought us to this particular moment. I did start off the conversation earlier on by mentioning that we have HR persons, we have journalists who've seen it, been there, done that, and we've had different persons, the data angle to this, and it's a full conversation, but it wouldn't be complete without talking to an expert. We have here a senior clinical psychologist that's talking about Chinyere Ugo Onyekwere of the NIM Foundation, who's going to be taking the floor right now. And I feel like every conversation we've had has brought us to this particular point in time. Chinyere Ugo, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I have a slide to share, so permit me to share my slide with you. Can you please enable me share my slide, host, so that we can join the conversation? Thank you to the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism for putting this together. It's very timely, seeing that May is the month of mental health awareness. So it's really an awesome, opportunity to have this conversation with you. All right, great. So I'll be speaking on the mental health and well-being of investigative journalists. I have worked with a couple of them in the past and in the present. Like I was mentioned earlier, I am a clinical psychologist. I work with NIM Foundation, and we are an organization that primarily focuses on providing mental health and psychosocial support to individuals, to communities who perhaps are in some form of crisis or who are experiencing some form of adversity in their lives. And we are everywhere in Nigeria, virtually and in person. And we provide psychological support amongst other things that we do. So thank you for this platform. So let's just start off the conversation with just understanding the basics of mental health. When we talk about mental health, what do we mean? We're talking about your emotional, cognitive, and behavioral, and your social well-being. Basically, we're looking at how you feel, your thoughts, your behavior, and how these all come together to impact on your daily life, how these all come together to impact on your interaction with society. What that means is that if you're in a place of constant stress, if you're in a place of negative emotions, your thought processes would be the same. You will find yourself in a negative headspace. Your behavior would be the same also, because there is definitely a relationship between the way you feel, the way you think, and the way you behave. And they all work together, interacting with each other and impacting each other. So if you're working in a very stressful environment, like has been shared by the amazing journalists and the people that have spoken before me, you may not always see the behavior in your face, but sometimes the behavior comes. And when it comes and when it boils up, and it can be very detrimental to your mental health and to the well-being of yourself and the people around you. Your mental health is very important at every aspect of your life. As a child, as a teenager, as an adult, it is part of what guides you into doing what you need to do. A poor mental health means that you will not be able to successfully go to work. You will not be able to successfully do what you need to do as a loved one, as a family, or as someone who has a family or someone who works within any space. So that's why we always preach about taking care of your mental health. It's important that you do that because from what we've heard, the work of a journalist, the life of a journalist is basically a frontline responder. You find that a lot of the times you're going to put yourself in places of danger because you need to get the work. I decided to do some research on the nature of the work of a journalist. I'm not a journalist, but I have worked with journalists. And so these are some of the things, I see you're laughing, Babatunde. These are some of the things that I hear, and I think it's been echoed in the conversation that has been said earlier. Stress, that's one of the biggest things that I've heard all the time, high stress levels. And high stress levels from the pressure, your tight deadlines, there's a constant pursuit for information and accuracy, and engagement is sensitive information, and because you're trying to also, I like to say in layman terms, you're coming in contact constantly with the negative part of life, sometimes that you absorb before you distribute it to us. So you're taking that shock first before you even lay the information to us. And many times what journalists do is that they don't always tell us the details, the backstories. They give us something that's a little bit palatable and they absorb all that shock and all that information themselves. What that does to you is that sometimes you can experience a lot of burnout. When we look at burnout, we talk about feelings of tiredness. It's like a form of exhaustion where you can't even function. You don't have the energy to do anything. So what that does to you is that you want to stay on your own. You want to withdraw. You don't want to engage with anybody. And for a journalist, that will mean that your productivity level will decline. Because if you're not going to work, if you're not speaking with people, if you're not doing what you need to do, you're going to experience burnout. Another thing that you might find that you can also experience is trauma. Trauma is a response to an overwhelming experience, sometimes life-threatening, sometimes a near-death experience. And for journalists, the work that you do exposes you to a lot of experiences that are scary, that are fearful, that are overwhelming. Many of these experiences can be direct. It can be first-hand experience, and many at times it can be second-hand experience. So when you also experience trauma, it can be direct trauma or it can be a vicarious trauma that is experiencing it as a result of interaction with somebody else that has experienced a traumatic event. So I think it's also important that many at times that the journalists need to also be careful about what they do, because your work exposes you to a lot of places and a lot of things that the everyday person doesn't experience. In your bid to cover stories, like we've heard from the speakers before, in your bid to cover stories, in your bid to provide information to the people, you would find yourself in situations that can be very frightening. Another thing I've noticed also is isolation and loneliness. Journalists tend to work very long hours. and they work alone sometimes with little to no interaction with their loved ones and with their family members, and with little to no interaction with their social support systems. So the longer you spend time on your own doing all this work that is very stressful, all this work that is very emotionally tasking, all this work that can leave you feeling heavily overwhelmed, feeling loads of negative emotions like anger, sadness, feelings of helplessness, the longer you spend time alone doing all these things, definitely it will have a negative impact on your mental health as well as your behavior and other aspects of your life, like your social well-being. Threats and intimidation. I won't go in so much detail about this because it has been talked about. The life of a journalist is that you're going to be faced with a lot of threats, a lot of intimidation, you're going to get harassment. There's a fear for safety that you will experience when you begin to experience threats. And I know of so many journalists that they've been attacked in their house, in their homes. They have been attacked on their way to work. You know, when they're living their life outside of their career or their occupation, they are attacked because they feel very unsafe. What that does to you is that you're going to constantly be in a state of fear. You're going to constantly be in a state of worry. You're going to feel some level of anxiety. You're going to be in a constant space of hyper alert, hyper vigilance, because you're looking out for the next thing that is going to come and attack you. What that does to your body is that even at a very, internal, very at the basics of the human function, and even with your organs, even with your hormones, even with the chemicals in your body, is that your body is constantly in a stress response, even when there is no stress. But because you're anticipating that something could happen, you find that you're constantly in a ready to fight, ready to fly. You find that you're constantly in a space where you are in a stress response. And for the everyday person, when you're constantly working your heart, you're constantly working the different organs of your body outside of what it's supposed to be functioning, it's a strain, it's wear and tear. The same goes to the hormones in your body. You're going up and down on the stress hormones. Cortisol is constantly being released in your body. It causes also physical health challenges as well as your mental health challenge. So here are some signs for you that you may be struggling. Feeling of sadness and feeling down, confused thinking, reduced ability to concentrate, excessive fear and worry, low moods, is it that it's too high or it's too low, just extreme changes in your mood. Withdrawal from friends and activities that you enjoy doing, just significant tiredness that you might experience, something that's just out of the normal. There's a low energy. You may also have problems sleeping. For some people, it's either you're not sleeping at all, and for other people, you're sleeping too much. So you might have like a different change in your sleeping patterns. Detachment from reality. For many people, it can be a form of escaping, but a lot of the time, you can detach from reality and that you can begin to develop quite severe mental health challenges like psychosis as a result of the work that you do. Your inability to cope with daily problems and your stress can also be a sign. At the slightest thing, you've lost your cool, you've lost your emotions, you're like, maybe shouting, or you're being aggressive, or you're being hostile to the people around you. Trouble understanding and relating to situations and to people. Problems with alcohol use. I put alcohol use and not even abuse because it starts with the use. Because we begin to become very dependent on alcohol. And many a times, sorry, okay, this is back. All right, okay, very good. When we have these problems, it can be even prescribed medication and medications that is over the counter. Anything can be abused. So don't think that because, the doctor gave it to me, it's all good. If you use it outside of the context of what it was given to you for, you're abusing it. Changes in eating habits, we can be eating a lot or we can be eating less. Your changes in your sex drive, excessive anger, hostility, and when you get to a point of suicidal thinking, thoughts of self-harm, that is a big cry for help. Everything else sometimes we can manage with different things with our social support. But the moment you begin to have suicidal thoughts, it's a crisis state that you're in that needs immediate response. So what can you do to take care of your mental health? It's very important for you to prioritize yourself. Beyond what you do as a journalist, you're also a family member, you're a friend, you're part of a community. There's a lot more to you than the work that you do. So I think it's important that you prioritize yourself. Identify your signs. What are the symptoms that you're having? What are the signs? What is your body telling you? Because your body will tell you. Many a times we don't pay attention because we say, oh, we have so much work, we have deadlines, we have this and we have that. And we pursue that and we forget that your body keeps giving you alarm. That constant headache that you're having, the inability to sleep, excessive eating, changes in your mood, that's your body telling you. The question is, what are you doing about it? Beyond also taking care of yourself, the organization, the place that you work. I'm glad that the speaker before me also talked about it. Organizational culture and policies that also safeguard and protect journalists. What are the structures that you have in place to protect the people? I think God at the times where we look at people as just tools, come and do the work and go. No, we have to start to pay attention to the emotional well-being of the people that are working with us. We have to pay attention to their health, because when you do that, you increase productivity, you reduce turnover, you have people who are happy to do the work because the nature of your work is hard. I think that's one thing I must say to you, that the nature of your work is hard. So when you put this measure in place to help people, it makes it a little bit easier for them to deal with the fallout and the fallbacks. Boundaries. It's important to establish boundaries. It's very important, especially for yourself. Boundaries are not what people do for you. Boundaries are what you do for yourself. Nobody's going to put a boundary for you. You have to put it for yourself, and you have to live by it because it works for you. Whatever it is that your boundary is, leave work at work. Sometimes you're required to do that because it's important to take care of your health and put your boundaries. Your social support. It's important to have a social support. Your social network are the people that lift you up when you're going through hard times. Because the nature of your work can be very long and tedious, having those people that you connect with that can help you switch out of thinking about work all the time and just talking about every other thing, and also keeping in touch with the other aspects of your life, is very important. A healthy lifestyle. What are you eating? How active are you? It's important that you pay attention to that. Engage in activities that are outside of the workplace. What do you do for fun? Many adults don't do anything for fun. We don't have leisure activities. We just work, work, work. So ask yourself, what is it that I do for fun? Engage in other activities outside because they help you also break away from the intense and the stressful nature of the work that you do. As adults, we spend the bulk of our lives in the workplace. So you need those breaks here and there to help you also connect with other aspects of your life. When you have done all that, it's important to seek psychological support. It's important to seek psychological help because the work with the psychologist, your work with your therapist goes beyond the everyday. We may not go into the details of what you would do with your psychologist, but it's important to seek psychological support because they help you, one, get understanding of what is going on. Sometimes you go through experiences that you don't know what is happening to you. Your psychologist will help you gain some form of understanding and clarity. Your psychologist will also help you with treatment, helping you solve the problem, finding a solution to the problem that is ongoing. That's a psychologist is a supportive person who provides a very secure and confidential space for you to just unburden, just to unpack, and just it's almost like taking these concerns and worry you have and putting it onto somebody who is going to be objective, confidential, and supportive throughout the process. So why is it important to take care of your health? Sorry, I told the team at Wole Soyinka that 5 minutes will not be enough for me. So please give me some more time. I'm almost done.
All right. Just let's say 2 more minutes. Good.
Perfect. That works for me.
Thank you.
So importance of taking care of yourself because you're impacted by the work you do. You're a human being. When you meet stories about people who have experienced some vulnerability, sometimes you may have experienced it yourself. So you will be impacted by that work. The work never ends. There's always a need. There's never going to be a point or a story that can't be told. There's always going to be something to be told. There's always going to be a need that needs to be met. So you need to also take care of yourself because of that. And because if you don't do that, you feel very overwhelmed and you'll be left feeling overwhelmed at the end of the workday. The nature of your work, like I said, it brings you in contact with people who have experienced some form of vulnerability, some form of human suffering, and sometimes you yourself may also experience it because of the line of the work. Your social and emotional well-being is another aspect of your life. So beyond being a journalist, beyond being whatever your title is, you're also something else to somebody. And finally, so that you don't lose faith in the work that you do, so that you don't lose faith in the people who benefit from the work that you do. Here's a little quote I want to leave you with. It's about self-care. It's about giving the world the best of you instead of giving the world what is left of you. And this is by Katie Reed. So yes, thank you.
Thank you for that. And I like that one. Give the world the best of you. And so, in as much as we want to keep giving and giving and giving and giving, we have to make sure that it's top-notch stuff and it's also it's excellent stuff. And well, it's of no use if it's not the best of us. And we have to put ourselves first, especially the mental health aspect as well first. Thank you so much for that. Ooh, what a session this has been. It's been therapeutic by itself, and I look forward to it. I remember Olaoluwa did say earlier on that there would, from the forms we fill, there would be some package for journalists whose bills would be paid for in all of this. And I think that's really important, just in case you missed out on that part of the conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Time's the only thing we don't always have on a day like this, you know, and it's amazing that we've had to go on and on. Thank you so much to our panelists for this session. At this point in time, we'll just jump right into it. We have limited time, but perhaps you have a question or two that you'd like to raise at this point in time on some of what has been said by some of our distinguished panelists. You have just 2 minutes, please. Let's your name, your location, or and I see Mohammed Yerima. Mohammed Yerima has his hands raised, and so please let's make it very, very quick and straight to the point. Thank you. All right, sir, Mohammed Yerima. I also see Fortunate also. I hope I pronounced that well. I'm so sorry if I didn't.
Hello.
Hello, you're live, Mohammed. Mohammed.
Yeah, hello. Good. Yes. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank the Holy Soyinka Center for Investigation Journalists for organizing this tremendous interactive. And I'm very excited because I have learned a lot indeed. And I just want to ask a question because most of the panelists have said the effects and whatever. So I just want to know what are the measures that we need to take in how to avoid this in terms of our work, how to avoid getting depression, anxiety and trauma. I just want to know the way how we can tackle ourselves from getting this a serious problem. Thank you very much.
All right. Chinyere, I think that's your question, except another person wants to chip in very quickly.
Yes, I think that would be for me. Like I said earlier, the nature of your work can predispose you to developing mental health challenges, be it anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder or depression. So what you can do, first of all, is, like I said, it's very important to, one, notice the signs and the symptoms. When people begin to tell you something is changing, you're behaving different, you look different, I think it's important to look into it and to ask what's going on with yourself, especially. The list of the things that I gave earlier about how to take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is not something you wait till you break down to do. Taking care of yourself is something you do every day. So I ask, what do you do every day to take care of yourself? What are those acts of kindness and services of kindness that you give yourself to replenish and to take care of yourself? So it's important to say every single day, this is what I'm going to do to take care of myself. And if you do those things and put some of these practices in line and you find that it's not helping, then it's important to seek professional help. If you're able to identify the signs, if you're able to identify your stressors, if you're able to put things in place every day to take care of yourself, like connecting with your loved ones, like maybe switching off from work sometimes, like doing other things that are fun. And if you're able to do all these things, like staying active, some people go to the gym, some people take walks. It's about doing things every single day. Many a times, it's important for you to look at leaving work at work because of the type of work you do. It's important that when you finish, Babatunde, you're smiling. Why do I feel like, it's important that you leave work at work. In case of emergencies, sometimes it could be different. But it's also important for time management. You have to schedule, you have to do things to make sure that you take care of yourself because of the work that you do. I think because of the journalistic work you do, it has to be a conscious effort. It has to be a very conscious effort. You have to do something every day. In my what I always advise and suggest to people, to make sure that you take care of yourself.
Ooh, thank you very much.
Ooh.
We have to
Sorry,
remember.
can I just add? Please speak out. Please speak out. If you're struggling at any point with anything, reach out to somebody, connect with somebody, let somebody know, so that they can help you with the burden.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nazif Ibrahim Ado, I see you. I'll be taking your comment in a bit, but Fortunate, please very quickly.
All right. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and
All
clear.
right. Okay. Thank you. I want to thank the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism for putting up this conversation. Everything the panelists have said, you know, they just are all about me. The stress I've been through for the past how many years. In fact, my body system has been acclimatized to a particular type of lifestyle that I do not sleep. I do not take my nap in the afternoon and in the night. I either sleep around 1 a.m. or around 2 a.m. because of a whole lot of work I have to do. I do not have a help at home. And after doing the work in the office, most times I come back at home, I have to edit the themes of the assignments I cover, both documentaries, both news and all that. And then when I'm done with all those, my family now have a pattern of eating whenever I am done cooking, whether it is by midnight or by 11 p.m. which is not good. So the effect of stress on the mental health of journalists cannot be overemphasized. I really want to say thank you for putting up this conversation. I've noted the steps listed by our panelists, especially Chinyerugo. And one thing I just
Hello, Fortunate.
want to say is that I have the time to rest in my place of work. I know the kind of burden I've been bearing, and I can't even open up because there is a way you will complain. It is as if you want to dodge your work. So in such kind of situation where your body is really telling you that you need rest, you need time off, but you can't do that. What do you do? Because you're not in control of the situation. Thank you.
All right, Chinyerugo, can we respond to that within a minute? She says, in a case where your body, you know, what do you do? You're no longer in control. It's not about, oh, just shut down. Your body's refusing to cooperate with you. What do you do?
You have to seek professional help. Speak with the counselor, speak with the psychologist. That is the point where you need that extra support. And she did also make mention about in the organization too, when you're in that place and you want the help and they're not giving it to you. Earlier on, I spoke about organizational policies, and I think the HR lady also spoke about it earlier. Policies in the organization that take care of the well-being of your staff. It's very important. Like I said, gone are the days where people are tools. Now you're working with human beings. We have to start to pay attention to the emotional health of our staff. We have to put things in place that help people take rests. We have to encourage it. Things as small as break time. Do your journalists in your organization have break time? Many of them don't. Do they have leave time? Many of them don't. Do you allow them time to recuperate when they come back from, maybe let's say they go to a conflict zone or they go to a place where there is some quite distressing event? Do you give them time to recuperate before they come back to work, or do you send them straight back to work? Those things are what we need to pay attention to at an organizational level to help the people that are working with us, just to help their life generally. Because when somebody is saying to you, I've tried everything and I'm still struggling, it's beyond them. You can't just say, oh yeah, go and seek help. No, what are you doing to help them, to support them? And please, if you find that you're really struggling, please reach out and seek help, please. And I think that if you do not seek help, they would not know how to give that help to you.
I would like to also weigh in, Babatunde. I was here because
I was just going to call on you. I was just going to call on you.
I jumped the gun. I think, you know, what Fortunate mentioned about an organization not necessarily supporting is very critical. And Chinyere has already opened the floor saying that you need help whichever way it is, you know, whether it's external or internal. Sometimes we, you know, first of all, of course, there has to be the trust factor that you trust who you're speaking or sharing with. Because what's going to happen is 1 minute silent, God forbid, or your job just, you know, I've seen instances where people lose their jobs because either the organization or the people who should know better were not supportive. So you need to come first. If you know that you're at a state where something is not jiving, as it were, look inward or look outward. Sometimes you may say your organization doesn't support, maybe it's your HR department, maybe it's a manager that you report to, that you think you've gained some level of trust with, or even a manager in a different department, or a team lead or somebody you can speak to. And if you think you don't have that support in-house, get it outside. You may get, you know, sometimes when we say we have malaria, for example, and you're supposed to take time off work, you're told to get a doctor's report. Yeah, we do that. Who says you can't get a doctor's report saying that you need 3 times, you know, 3 days off work just to relax? The details don't need to be stated, but you know, what happens also sometimes is that organizations think that, when I say organizations, some people in organizations, managers, or feel that people are abusing opportunities if they're presented. But Chinyere said something, well-being is very important. We're not machines. And if people are not bringing their hands, their hearts, and their heads to work, I'll say it again, if people are not bringing their hands, their hearts, and their head to work, then there's nothing going to be done. So
thank you.
Which is why it is important that this session is being had. I think it's important that we keep saying it, we keep preaching it. Whatever narrative we've gathered from here, people who are taking notes, please share with your teams, your HR persons. If they're not on this call, share the feedback from this thing. There's nothing stopping you from going back to your workplaces and say, oh, I learned this today. I heard this today. Can you research into it? You know, that would be my add-on to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You took the words right out, you know, of my mouth. Thank you so much for that and for sharing. Again, I'm really glad, because looking at the lineup of some of the persons we've got on this particular workshop, I see editor this, you know, so these are people in the position to influence or make a change in the workspace. This is also to notify everyone here. There's a call for application that's just been put up on the comment chat section. Section, I beg your pardon, call for application for mental health, psychosocial support for investigative journalists and editors. Interested investigative journalist reporters should fill out the form. It's right there. Please, you can check it. We're gradually drawing up to the end of this particular show. It's been put up once again. Call for application, mental health, psychosocial support for investigative journalists and editors. Interested investigative journalists, reporters should fill out the form. It's there already. We have just time for one last question, and that's from Nazif Ibrahim Ado, who says, how can someone working in a conflict-prone area cope with his mental health? Any advice? Chinyere, I think that's your question as well.
Yes, I think that's for me. Funny enough, actually, we also work in a conflict region. The bulk of our work is a conflict, because I'm currently in Maiduguri. So we work from that space, and we go into other states where we work. What can you do to seek help? I think one thing many people don't realize is that the context of being in war zones, or context of being in places where there's conflict, is very different from the everyday state where you have some form of relative peace. There's a heightened state of anxiety that people in this place always feel. And then if you're a journalist in this space, the amount of things that you see, the stories that you're exposed to, it's so, the things that are inhumane things that are done in places where you have conflict is just so overwhelming. So I can totally relate and understand with the person who asked that question. I think one of the things that I find to be very helpful is that support system. The support system goes a long way. Who are the people that you call every day to help you when you're going through problems? In the workplaces, are there mental health care support for the people who are going into this place, into these spaces? one of the things that we do in our organization is a form of debrief. Like when people go out and they come back together, they sit down and they talk about the experience. It helps you try to make sense of what's going on. And it gives you a space to talk about how you're feeling. So one thing I like to encourage is that if you're working in this space, if you're working in a team, that you have a safe space for each other where you can actually open up and talk about what it is that what's going on with you. Again, if you do not speak about what the problem is or what the challenges are, you may not get the help that you need. Your support system is very important. When you're going through distress, it's important to note what they are. Speak to somebody about it. Speak to the right people about it. Sometimes most organizations give R&R where you can go out of the place. If you're able to go out of the space, I think it'll be very helpful for you because the climb in the places where they have conflict is very different. And so some breaks sometimes can be easy. Again, psychological support, I cannot overestimate, I cannot just keep talking about how important it is because of where you are, because of the work you do, and because you need to take care of yourself. Again, the everyday things you do. What are you doing every day to take care of yourself?
Thank you so much. And that's a befitting way to wrap up this session. And we're gradually coming to the end of this particular workshop. Oh, I've learned a lot. I have my notes right here. And the aim, again, has been to kick off a conversation that continues to drive itself with the influencers, the storytellers in this particular space. So very quickly, we could just start off, we'll end this conversation the way we started it. And that's by getting, a final take. We've had the honor of having Haruna Muhammad, Kofo Ola Bello Osagi, Juliana, Francis, Busola Jibola, and Oluwakemi Shonube and Chinyere Ugo Onyekwere right here. I want to start off with Haruna. Haruna, let's have your end note after this particular event in 2 minutes, please. Haruna? Is Haruna there?
Yes, I am here, but you are breaking a lot. I didn't hear if there was a question for me. But if you want me
Let's
to
get
mention my final thoughts.
Koforola, please, if you're there, let's
Hello,
have
can you
your
hear
final
me?
thoughts.
I think Aruna just spoke that he could hear.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
can you hear
Haruna,
me?
please go on.
Thank you. So
Yes,
very
yes.
quickly, I am having some network issues very quickly. So yeah, great contributions from all the panelists. My madam from Channels TV mentioned something that I find very instructive,
I'm
which
sorry,
was
it's TVC
about
Communications,
education,
Haruna,
right?
not channels. TVC
TVC.
Communications.
Okay,
Yes,
TVC.
thank you.
I apologize. I
Go
apologize. Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, she talked about awareness and education, which I find very, very instructive. And I think we also have to figure out some of the actors, some of the people around us that will need that kind of awareness and that kind of education. It's very, very important. If, for example, your family members are telling you that you are a troublemaker who is bringing a lot of stress to them because of your work, so at that material time, you have to figure out that they need education at that level, and you have to make every single effort to educate them and sensitize them, convince them that your work is important, and you have to continue. The same thing with your colleagues in the office, particularly younger ones who are seeing the troubles. And so for me, for example, sometimes the struggle is I have to struggle to really convince these guys to continue to work with me regardless of the stress, regardless of the troubles, because one conviction is driving all of us, which is that we are convinced that Nigeria is in a mess, and we are convinced that journalism is an important instrument that can put power on check. So if we have that conviction, it should be a driving factor for us in the newsroom, right? To continue to tell people that, look, we are on the right side of history. We have to continue regardless of the trouble, regardless of this kind of threat. And that is why this issue of awareness and education is very, very important. I think we need to continue to also figure out all the people, the actors that should have this. And then lastly,
Thank you.
Sometimes, yes, the psychological support is very, very instrumental, I must tell you. I have benefited from it a lot, but sometimes I feel guilty because I am causing trouble for people who are not journalists, who are also feeling the pain. So if I am getting psychological support, what about them? Who is going to offer psychological support to my mom, to my loved ones who are also traumatized as a result of my work? So that is also an issue for me. And that is why sometimes when people reach out to me, do you need psychological support? I tell them, no, I don't need it, because when I get one, how about those other people?
Right.
And so that is why understanding yourself and what works for you is also important. So for me, sometimes, not all the time, you will need psychological support. And I think you need to
Thank you, Haruna.
rediscover yourself to know what works for you and how best to
Thank you.
address your issues. Sorry, I wanted to
Thank
add
you.
more and more, but time is against us.
Time's never enough, Haruna.
Thank you.
Time's never enough. Thank you so much. Obviously, you're doing something right. Yawale Adamu. I'm sorry if I murdered that. Please forgive me. He says, help me thank Haruna Mohammed Salisu for his support to his staff who are being threatened for doing their work. All right, so there you have it. Let's move on to get Kufuro Bello Sage's final thought right now, very quickly, please.
Thank you very much. My final thoughts to journalists is to start your self-awareness journey. You need to take stock, observe, learn to know yourself. Knowing yourself is the starting point. What are the things that are ticking you off? What are your stressors? Because at a point in time, you will be too ill or you get too old to take, and things may have gone bad. So before it gets to that point, start taking stock now. I read somewhere that the muscles start aging at 30. When we are 30 to 40, 30 to 39, you think you are on top of the world and you can do everything, but you're already getting old. Then when you are 40, you start seeing the signs. Please don't wait until then. Start taking stock now and taking action. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aptly put. Start taking stock. Again, she's re-emphasized that. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of your body. Our bodies are a tool of trade in this profession, and that's talking about it getting the job done, running around the field and getting the stories that matter. Juliana Francis, very quickly, please. Hello, Juliana. Are you there?
Yeah. So mine
Please
is
proceed.
to journalists, actually. If some of you may be thinking that, oh, this is not happening to you or it can never happen to you, but if you're in the newsroom and you discover that you are very, very addicted to psychoactive drugs like caffeine, nicotine, and you love taking alcohol, coffee, just know that you're already there. Because there was a time I couldn't walk. I wouldn't be able to write a story if I didn't take a cup of coffee. And sometimes in a day, I can take as much as 4 or 5 cups of coffee. And I'm talking about a big job. So you should start looking at, if you are at that point, and I know it happens mostly in newsroom towards production time, just know that we are part of the clique right now. And for the Wọlé Soyinka Center, this is good. They've launched it, but I keep asking why this conversation was going on. What about other, because this is Lagos, and we have journalists across Nigeria. Many of them, I'm sure, are actually going through the Wọlé Soyinka should be able to see how to get across to them, because I don't want it to be like they are going to be overloaded. And then media organizations should become intentional about this issue. How they can partner NGOs that are into mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that take, Juliana. Thank you very much for that. Busola Ajibola, please let's have your final thoughts. Hello, Busola. Are you there? All right. While we wait for Busola's take, let's have our human resource expert. Let's have Oluwakemi Shonobi give her take.
Okay, I would first of all speak from or to organizations and encourage more advocacy, more education, more sensitization. It's not enough for people who are serving your organization to go out to do this, to serve your organization, and they're not empowered in the sense that they're not healthy enough to deliver on what is required. So all of us on this call, we have an obligation to go back in whatever capacity we serve in. You may be a team lead, you may be an editor, you may be an executive editor, you may be a producer within your newsroom. You have an obligation to cascade information as much as is possible while showing and connecting the dots. I think there was data shared earlier, and it's important that we leverage those kinds of things. That is how we can improve our workplaces, we can improve our people. And then my last words to all of us on this call, to ourselves, is you need to remember that you need to fill your cup, because you can't pour from an empty cup. If I'm holding a cup and somebody says, I want some part of your tea or your coffee, you cannot give what you don't have. So it's very important that we're committed to, I was just typing something for a family member. You need to be committed to having routine checks. You need to, don't wait until your body breaks down completely. And I think everybody has said, because what we all do is we do patch and polish. We start taking alcohol, we take some drugs, we have persistent headaches, you're taking Panadol. Don't wait until that time when you break down completely and you are not even able to serve yourself, not even the organization. You can't serve yourself. So please take advantage of routine checks. If your organization is not doing it now, don't worry. Invest in yourself. Take care of yourself. It's like driving a car. If you don't check the oil, you don't check the fuel, you'll be driving on the road and it will break down one day. Don't check your tires. So those are the things I would say. Thank you very much once again to the team for putting this together. And we're really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Is Busola back online? Busola, are you back? Are you there? All right, perhaps some networking issues going on there. All right, right about now, I'm going to bring in Chinyere Ugo, our Onyekwere, our psychologist, who's going to give us a 2 minutes take as well.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak again to Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. This has been amazing. What I'd like to say to all the journalists and to the people listening is that self-care is about engaging in activities, in healthy activities, not just any form of activity, but in healthy activities that help you refill and feel like yourself again. It's important for you to realize that whatever we talk about here is not just for only you, it's also for the people around you. The essence of awareness is to build knowledge. And when we build knowledge, we are tools that will disseminate the information to the people around us, to point them into directions where you can get resources for yourself. It's about doing something every single day to take care of yourself. Please pay attention to your thoughts. Please pay attention to your emotions. Please pay attention to your behavior. And when you see changes or when people point out changes to you, please reach out to professional help and care and people that you can trust. Those are the people that you want to speak to and open up to, and hopefully be able to get the right care and support that you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. All's well that ends well. Right about now, let's have Olaoluwa give the vote of thanks, and then we'll wrap this up to go fold up our sleeves to get the work going. Olaoluwa.
All right. Thank you very much, Babatunde, for steering the ship of this conversation since we started. And I really want to also use this opportunity to appreciate all those who joined this conversation. I hope we've been able to take home one thing or the other. And I think I kind of like the no holds barred format it took. I mean, no one is judging you. No one is saying stuff. Everybody was just free to share their experience. And I liked the nuanced conversations to the professionals added to it, talking about Chinyerogo and Kemi Shonubi, who added some nuanced conversation from the angle of the HR and the angle of the psychologist, which is very, very important. And to all of the other panelists, my sister Busola Ajibola from the CJID, Juliana Francis, Aruna Mohammed, and Madam Kufuro Labdelu, thank you so much for joining this conversation. Really appreciate it. And before we go, I'd like to also reiterate the fact that we'll have the call for application for the mental health and psychosocial support in the chat box for all those interested. You can just fill that form and I will sure reach out to you. And be rest assured that your confidentiality as far as that is concerned is guaranteed. And let me also react to what Juliana Francis said about the geographical spread of the support. We at the center are ensuring that we have organizations that will take care of those who might be applying from the northern part of the country and those who might be applying from the southern part of the country, to ensure that there is adequate geographical spread so that no one is left out as far as this is concerned. So that is what we are doing at the center, to ensure that journalists are really, really taken care of, not just in terms of giving money, but that their mental health is really well taken care of. And just as I wrap up, I want us to continue the conversation. I also like to inform you that just before the end of the day, the video of this will be available on our YouTube page. You can share with your colleagues in case they missed this conversation, and I'm sure that will really go a long way to just address whatever issue they have as far as mental health is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon to you.
No, thank you so much, Olaoluwa. And with that, we come to the end of this workshop. Well, on behalf of the Wale Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism, we thank you for attending this mental health workshop organized by the Center with support from the Netherlands Embassy. My name is Babatunde Okunlala. Let's keep the conversation going, and it's been an honor moderating this event. Thank you so much, and bye.